its finest. We're back here with Sid Miller, and you were talking about the lack of a timely rain when putting out a fire in Texas.
Yeah, we never did get the rains enough to put the fire out, but we did get some calm days where the wind died down. We had high humidity, and that allowed us to kind of get ahead of the fires and finally get them all put out. About 2,000 square miles, Trent, after it was all said and done.
Wow. It's just like if you drive up on that kind of a country, it's like you've just entered another planet. It's just such a strange feeling.
Yeah, it started East Amarillo, went into all the way into the western part of Oklahoma.
So now all attention has been paid to a group of cows and dairy cattle, which ironically are kind of in the geographically same part of
Same
Texas.
area, yeah, same area, kind of, sort of.
Yeah. So what? I mean, Texas is a big place, and yet all of this focus for you has been to the northwest corner. What's the latest on cows testing positive? I never heard of cows testing positive for avian influenza, so now we've heard it all. Sid, what's up with this?
Well, this all started about a month ago, and we had about 40% of our dairy herds in that part of the state, West Texas, the Texas Panhandle, were getting sick, some kind of mystery disease. We'd test them for every known bovine disease out there, and we couldn't find anything. Somebody was one day said, "Well, what are all these dead birds around this dairy?" I said, well, "I don't know. Maybe we've got bird flu." Well, cattle don't, just like you said, cattle don't get bird flu. Well, let's test anyway. So, wow, they came up with two dairies in Texas and two in Kansas that actually tested positive for avian influenza. So that was a whole new deal. Then we got some in Idaho and Minnesota. And the curious thing about that, we positive it came from migrating waterfowl. So we're taking precautions against that, not letting cattle water, where ponds have had ducks in it and different things, biosecurity measures. But Idaho and Minnesota had received cows from Texas. Now here's the mysterious thing. They were on the same dairy where the dairy cattle got sick, but they were in different corrals and segregated. They were never intermingled.
Hmm.
So I don't know what that means. So if it means anything, or if it came from the cows, or it may have came from waterfowl. We just don't know it at this point. We're still working on that. So we're trying to figure all that out.
I mean, there's still a lot of things you don't know, but we're told at this point in time that there's a belief that there's not a transfer from animal to animal.
Well, that's what we were originally told. But these two northern states, Idaho and Minnesota, it very well possibly could have come from the cows that were, shipped in from Texas. Now, the Texas cows never did show any symptoms of the disease. So, and they never tested positive themselves. So that makes it even more a mystery.
Hmm. There's just so many things about this is from an animal husbandry standpoint that just don't add up, Sid.
Oh, I know. And then we had one of our dairy workers at one of those dairies in Texas. He came up with bird flu, which is very rare. It's happened one time before. Back in 2022, we had one human case in Colorado. The good news is there is some good news with this. The human case, he just kind of had the red eye. I mean, it was like he had a light case of pink eye. Little
Hmm.
to no fever, didn't make him very sick. So it's not a big deal, I guess, if humans gets it. The cows, unlike poultry, we're not going to have to depopulate those dairies. They just kind of had the flu for a week. They just kind of went off their feed, and the milk production dropped. But after about a week, 10 days tops, they're back, in the milking parlor doing just fine. So the other good news is on the consumer side, none of that milk got in the food chain. And if it had, it would have been okay because all that milk's pasteurized, and that kills all the pathogens. Now we dump the bad milk, but it's not enough to affect the overall price of dairy products. Very, very minute amount in the overall scheme of things. So no increased dairy product prices, no risk to, the milk went in the food chain. The one person out of 341 million that had bird flu just had a light case of the pink eye and got over it for fairly quickly.
Again, defying animal husbandry logic, we usually have young animals that do not have the immunity that the older animals have, simply because they haven't had as much exposure. And what I understand in this situation, the young animals are not showing clinical symptoms, but the older animals are.
Well, it's only lactating cows. It's not the dry cows. It's not the young heifers. It's not the young, fresher cows that have just calved. It's the older cows, which doesn't make a lot. It still defies cowboy logic. So it's not every cow on the dairy that gets it. So you're exactly right. Now, on top of all this, I had a press release today at noon where we actually have bird flu in a egg farm in Farwell, Texas, which is again kind of sort of in that same part of the state. It's a big one. It's owned by Cal-Maine Farms. They're going to have to depopulate or destroy, whatever word you want to use, 1,600,000 hens and about 366,000 pullets. So all plus, several million eggs, there at that facility. If it's all got to be destroyed. So that's, but again, Cal-Maine is a big operation. That's less than 4% of their overall operation. It's not enough to affect the consumer price of eggs or poultry. Good thing about it, we can hatch another chicken in 28 days, and 5 to 6 months we'll have more laying hens in that operation once we get it cleaned up and disinfected.
I've never understood the USDA protocol for avian influenza being found in a poultry flock, Sid, because instead of isolating those animals with symptoms or testing positive, they come in and euthanize the entire barn, in this case, nearly 1.7 million birds. I'm certainly glad the USDA is not suggesting that now. Otherwise, the Commissioner of Agriculture for the state of Texas have to stand up and say, wait a minute, it's time we put some cowboy logic to play here.
And the chickens really don't have severe symptoms either. I mean, they just don't. I don't know what happens to them long term because none of them ever live long term. We don't
know. For those even in the beef business may not fully understand and grasp what's happened in the dairy business, Texas has become a big part of the dairy industry, period. For number one, there's been a migration from California, and I understand you have in the works yet another Hillmar cheese plant that's going to be built somewhere down in that country. It's going to have an positive impact in Texas dairy. But the other thing that's happened is that, and the reason you have cattle heifers going from Texas to Idaho and Minnesota and Wisconsin is that many people are developing their young heifers in Southwest Kansas and then ultimately in Texas before they come back to the herds where they milk in. That's been a big growth in Texas dairy that really hasn't gotten a lot of attention.
Well, we do have a lot of calf ranches, where they start them, but we also do have a lot of heifer development ranches. They specialize two different specializations there, but where they take the babies to 300 pounds, and then another ranch will take those and grow them out, breed them, and get them ready to calve, and then they go back to the original dairy herd where they are contracted to.
Sid, in the final minutes here, I want to just kind of reiterate that I sense that there are some people going to try to make this a bigger issue than it really is. It's not a life-threatening issue to the cow. It's certainly not a life-threatening issue to the person with pink eye. It's something that we need to take precautions in, but this is another animal disease that we will manage our way through, and there's no reason to try to get too excited about what is taking place here. Just let the experts do their job, and we'll work through this.
Yeah, just use some good biosecurity measures, a little cowboy logic, as you and I would say. If you're tending to those sick cows, put on some gloves and a mask and some goggles. Don't breathe that stuff in, and kind of use good sanitary, disinfect your water troughs, your vehicles coming in and out. Keep the cattle pinned off of ponds that were ducks might have been, and if you've got ducks landing on your dairy, eating the corn out of the lots there, well, try to keep them run off. Probably not a good thing to let happen.
Yeah. I just also, something tells me that there just has to be a tie between the amount of smoke that you had for a period of time and what you're dealing with now, realizing there's a lot of speculation there, but the geographical area just kind of intrigues me, Sid.
Well, that was one of the first things we looked at, and actually the smoke was traveling the opposite direction of the
and every time Sid gets a phone call, he gets bumped off. And I think he was about to tell us that
Uh,
you're back, Sid. Every time he gets bumped off, he has to reboot and come back and be a part of this whole process. So he should be good now, Sid. You've already
all
looked at
right.
that. You're telling me.
Yeah, what was the first thing we looked at actually? Because I thought the first thing that popped in my mind it had something to do with the fires. Maybe it was a respiratory illness from the smoke, but smoke was never where the dairies are. There, it went the other way.
Hmm.
It
All
was
right.
a
Any
the
closing thoughts
dairy
for us to take home?
the dairies are west of the fire region, and the wind for the fire was coming out of the north and northwest, blowing it away from the dairies.
Okay. What's our take home message here, Sid Miller?
Well, don't panic. This is not a good deal, but it's not a big deal. You know, cattle, it's like they have the flu for a week and they get over it. You know, if a human gets it, which is highly unlikely, it's like you get a mild case of the pink eye. You'll get over it. It's not life threatening. These dairymen have had some economic, hits, but it's not going to put them out of business. It's not a career-ending occurrence. So we'll get through it. We don't like it, but we can deal with it.
Sid Miller, Commissioner of Agriculture for the state of Texas, bringing the cowboy logic that all of us need to implement a little more, wouldn't you say? For this Loose
Yes, sir.
Tales special report, be gentle, stay firm.